Keep an eye on the time. My name's Paul. I'm the Recruitment Operations Manager at Metro Bank, where I've been for the last 2 years. So I look after the data and systems, the processes, or the MI reporting, the onboarding experience for the bank. And I work within a centralised recruitment function of around 20 recruiters. We have 3 separate teams, one looking after the specialist hires, so that's the sort of risk, IT, data, that sort of thing. We've got a recruitment function looking after the commercialised areas, so local directors, business managers and that sort of thing. And then we've got a centralised customer-facing recruitment team looking after all the hires across the bank for the customer-facing roles, so cashiers, store managers, assistant managers, where they run their M-Factors or assessment centres from Holborn mostly, or regionally when we're opening up stores further afield. And that gives them much more control over the candidate experience that we see and we can give people coming through the process. To give you an idea about the history of the bank, we opened our first store in 2010. At that point, we had a vision of what that would look like for 2020. That's now changed to 2023. You've got to keep up with the times. We are nearly at 2020. When Vernon, our chairman, opened the bank, he has opened other businesses, other banks very successfully. He's got a big recipe for success, but the 3 main pillars for those, for him, would be having a unique business model. So for us, that means that we look at ourselves as a retailer first and as a bank second, I guess. So we are a retailer that has a banking license. So we compare ourselves against the retailers who give the very best experience in store. So you're looking at Apple, Lush, John Lewis. We compare ourselves against those, and that's what we do. We actually report every month on Glassdoor, looking at the reports to the exec to say this is how we compare with our feedback with the what the candidates and customers are saying with us or about us. So our business model is unique in that it's looking at retail, but also that we have to have some very distinctive USPs. So as a bank, if you walk into our stores, you can see it a little bit later, but you won't see the bulletproof glass. You will see big open spaces, very, very bright and light. We'll encourage kids and dogs into the banks as well. There's lots of different things that we do in the store that you won't see other people doing. If you're doing that for your customers, you're trying to surprise and delight, you're exceeding expectations for your customers, and you're trying to create fans, then you have to do that. You absolutely have to do that with the colleagues as well internally. And so all these phrases that we'll have and we'll use, I guess, internally so that our colleagues can give a fantastic experience for our customers, we also do internally with our colleagues. And so we will surprise and delight our colleagues. We will exceed their expectations. We will do everything we can to make sure that we're creating fans internally as well. And that then really generates, from a recruitment perspective, a much higher take-up on the refer a friend scheme. So we don't ever set targets and numbers or KPIs, but we do aim to have of our external hires, about 20 to 25% of those coming through referral schemes. And that's, as far as I can tell, a fairly high number. Obviously, it's going to get more difficult as we expand further north. We opened stores recently over in Birmingham, and clearly we're going to have fewer refer friends coming up that way. And neither of those 2 things would make any difference if you didn't have fanatical execution. You've got to be passionate about what you do. You've got to make sure people are bought into the culture, bought into what you're trying to do for your customer, because without your fanatical execution, without people being passionate about what they do, the rest of the plan, everything else falls apart. So most recently, I will talk about this first. So the next bit. The USPs that I was mentioning before about the stores, obviously we call them stores, they're not branches, we're a retailer. If you see in the top left-hand side there, that's an example of one of the stores. It's got a drive-through in there, sort of the first British bank to do that. We're here to revolutionise British banking after all, and we have a grand opening. When we open our stores up, we have a party or a carnival atmosphere for 2 days. So we put in a lot of effort. Our execs from different business areas, people from all over the bank will go up to the store to help us open that. And so we have people talking to customers on the streets, we have people engaging with customers who won't have heard of us before. In London, brand recognition is really high, but as you get further afield, as we're opening in Birmingham, Manchester, Bradford, Cardiff, brand recognition is much, much lower, so we need to make a splash. We're open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekdays, which is, again, very different from the other banks, and it gives people an opportunity to go in there as a customer before and after work, as well as that massive queue at lunchtimes. But it also means that when we do have a party in our grand opening, that the other banks who may, and they did originally, try to compete and try to steal some of our attention. So we did have a competitor with their own balloons, their own flags, their own party, come to us on a Saturday to try and sort of steal some customers when we were partying. But obviously they left at midday because that's when their bank shuts, so they leave, and then we're still partying until 8 o'clock at night. We've got a DJ, we've got stilt walkers, we've got popcorn, we've got all sorts of things going on. And it's quite fun to see them come and then leave halfway through the day because that's when they shut. So the most recent history for the business has been of high growth. So between 2013 and 2019, we saw the numbers of colleagues grow from 600 to 4,000. We've now got 1.8 million customers served across 70 stores, which has been a fantastic growth. This year, in reality, we've had a much more troubled or challenging year. We've got some different things that have been going on in the press. We've got some challenges with the brand that we haven't had previously. So before, our recruiters were in the lucky position of being able to just talk about Metro Bank, talk about the story, talk about how our high growth model, talk about how you would build your business and develop your teams and grow across the bank in different ways. And this year we've had to answer some more challenging questions, and we've been open and honest about that with the candidates, and been open and honest about everything that we see as being true. There are some things that in press that aren't as true as they could be, and that's something that we would encourage the team to talk about. We've recently hired a new CIO and a new Chief Transformation Officer, and on them joining the business, some of the comments that they made was that the decision to join us was made much more easy by the fact that we are open and transparent with the challenges that we've had. I think you'll all agree when you speak to candidates and try to paint too rosy a picture, then little warning signs will go up and flags will shoot up and they'll notice that something's not quite right. So you've got to be open and honest with them. And we've grown the business in this way by being amazing at what we do every single day and by creating fans. Amazing for us isn't some generic sort of term that you would use, it is our behaviours. So we would talk about these behaviours all the time within the team. Everybody is assessed against these behaviours, your reviews are conducted against these behaviours, and it's the leadership style behaviours that I wanted to talk about later on today, because I want to talk about in terms of revolutionising your recruitment team. It comes from the leadership first. So that's inspire your colleagues to create fans, nurture your colleagues to grow, and game change, because this is a revolution. From our point of view, we're building a bank. We have quite an entrepreneurial spirit and style within the bank, which means that we want people to come up with ideas, we want people to challenge. As a customer, you'll hear us talk about having no stupid bank rules, and as a colleague, again, if you see a stupid bank rule, tell us, because we'll get rid of it if we can do. And we have certain different ways of bumping up to the different exec and the board within the bank. We have a Yammer, we have a link, you can go speak to anybody you want to. So if I wanted to speak to the Chief People Officer and say, what are we doing here? Why is that? She'll be happy to talk to us and to explain what's going on, or to have that challenged, so that ultimately we can create fans of our customers and of our colleagues. So we want to talk about the leadership style in terms of how to revolutionise our recruitment team. This is Penny Ferguson, who is a leadership guru. She runs a living leader type course, and our execs have been on that course and then have now been able to train that out. So if you go on this course, it's a 3-day course, you will quite often see one of the executive team being the trainer, teaching the leaders or training the leaders and coaching them on what they need to do next, on how they want to lead. And the leadership style, as far as we're concerned, is that you are creating other leaders. You've got to trust your people to be able to make the right decisions and possibly to make mistakes, so that's going to happen, but you need to trust them to make their decisions. If you think about now, anybody you have worked for or who has led you in the past, who you really inspire or really inspired you or you aspire to be like, I guarantee that that person will have trusted you to make your own decisions. And so within the bank ourselves, we sometimes need a control management style where you set up rules and regulations, and my job is operations, and so I am asked to set up more rules and regulations than most people, but I try to push back to say, do we need that rule? Or can we trust people to just get on and do it right? We just coach them to do it better. But more often than not, if you give people freedom to do things themselves, they're going to come up with a better result or other results and other ideas that you wouldn't have. And in terms of that, we have this year entrusted a lot of our recruitment team to go out and do and make a lot of changes. And so we're really lucky that we've already really embedded some shared goals and values. We're here to create fans by being amazing every single day. Our CEO will talk about people joining the business by being recruited for their attitude, and we'll train them for their skill. That comes from our CEO and our chairman. As much as I've worked in other places where you are expecting, as a recruitment function, to try and get that message up so that it can spread across the bank. This is already coming top down. They know that you're recruiting for attitude, training for skill, because within the bank, you're not limited to just a single career path. So we have a compass, a talent compass, so which direction you're going next, rather than just, right, you started here, therefore you can only do this. Within our own team, we have, we've been really lucky that we recruit people from our stores, so we've got cashiers and call centre workers who are with us, as well as ex-agency colleagues as well. I'm ex-agency myself, and those cashiers and call centre workers have come in and done really well. As you'd expect, the people who worked in the call centre are fantastic on the phone, which always helps. And then we've also got experience of people moving on from being a recruiter into different people generalist roles, or even joining private banking or joining the IT team, because that's where the skills lie. If you're looking for transferable skills, and you know that you can train on the other sort of technical aspects, then the career paths open up, and that means that the people who join you and working for you are open about what their aims are, and they know that they can get that within the bank. Once you've got them bought in, I'd love to talk about projects first. If you talk about projects too early and you don't have everybody bought in, they're not motivated for the vision and the goal, they don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it, the projects aren't going to be that great. And I've seen areas in the past in other businesses I've worked at where you ask someone to give you an idea on what you need to change, and what you get is very little because they know they're not going to be listened to. Part of our behaviour is ask if you're not sure, bump it up. And game change, because it's a revolution. And that's really important because it means that people are open and honest with you when they say, I need this to change. And so we, at the beginning of the year, asked our recruitment team to go and think about what we need to do in recruitment to change and to revolutionise what we're about. And every single one of the recruiters, so that's 20 odd recruiters, come up with a presentation. Sometimes they worked in pairs, they teamed up with each other on what they think we can do to change on a limited budget. Even if you think a limited budget is 35 grand, I'm thinking much smaller than that. I'm thinking much, much smaller. So basically for free, what can you do that will help us change things? And some of the ideas that they came up with were absolutely fantastic. We were talking about removing, going paperless really. So instead of printing out your interviews on paper, we put it into the system. And so now what we've gone live with very recently, and we've been trialling for a while, is interviews that are directly on the system. So you ask questions, you fill in during the interview, you press save, and then you don't have to follow up with calls saying, where's your interview notes, or they don't have to scan them in and send them to you, they don't have to try and find you, put them on a desk, lose them, or scribbles that don't make any sense. It's all typed up, it's all done immediately. So it's a better experience for the hiring managers, because they don't have to worry about all of that. Better experience for the candidates and the recruiters, because it's instantly done. You can see when an interview is complete because the feedback is on your screen. We've done some projects to improve the hiring manager portal as well. So we've got a portal where you submit your CVs and jobs and things like that. And every single week, we were manually sending information to the hiring managers to say, this is where you're at with your job. When I got to the business a couple of years ago, they were handwriting this input. So I turned that into a report that you could download into an Excel spreadsheet, press a button, and it turns it into an email. They just sense check it and send it out. Saves them like 20 hours a week as a team. It would take an hour to write this report. It now takes 2 seconds. The next step of that is to remove the Excel spreadsheet completely as well and put it all online so that they can self-serve for their details, which is great. I love my Excel spreadsheets that I created for the team, and apparently they don't want them or need them. So, but it will save them even more time, self-serving. And maybe if we want to keep a weekly report that goes to the hiring managers, we can turn that into something much more insightful, rather than just this how many interviews you've got, how many CVs you've got waiting. And we've got a culture within the business that is heavily based on recognising where people are helping you. If you're asking people for help all the time, if you're going to bump things up to other people all the time, they need to be willing to give you that time to answer those questions. And that works in reverse as well. So whilst you're being asked questions, you are asking questions of others, and you're always recognising when people are serving that. I mentioned before about the M factors, there are assessment centres that we run, and we'll have finance analysts, we'll have people from the offices helping out with those M factors. We'll have store managers, we'll have business managers, we'll have all sorts of people helping run our auditions for us, because they're quite heavy, they're quite manpower heavy. We have maybe 30 candidates. If we have 30 candidates in one go, we'll have 40 assessors and rotating around the different exercises. If they're giving up that time, then you need to be able to recognise them. So we'll surprise and delight our colleagues with chocolates or sweets or thank you cards or other little trinkets if people are continually and regularly helping you out. And that is a really positive cycle to get into, because people are happy to give up their time to go for it. And that all comes down from that leadership piece. Now, linking it with the leadership course that we do, if you think about positive motivators for why people work where they work, or why they might want to join you as a business, has anyone heard of the Friedrich Herzberg model? Has anybody recognised this list of stuff? I'm getting a lot of, you've got one, get in there. So essentially, when people are talking in recruitment about trying to attract talent, obviously they talk about salary, but we know salary is not the main motivator, but people say salary anyway. Friedrich Herzberg figured out that these were hygiene factors. So you're talking about what you need to stay in a job just to keep you in a job, as opposed to keep you motivated in that job. So you do need salary, you need some sort of sense of status, you need some sort of fringe benefits. These are things that if you get not lazy, but if you start being a bit more complacent in your role, you'll start selling these aspects as opposed to selling the motivators. And these are the things that really drive people to do well in their job. And the work that we've done this year, and continually do, tend to always fall into that sort of top list of motivators. So you're talking about giving people recognition, giving them responsibility to do and own their own job, giving them extra things to be involved in. And if they're running their own projects that they wanted to be involved in, then they're more interested in that job. So by making sure that you're giving people projects and delivering on those projects as well, rather than just asking people for ideas and not delivering on them, you're actually falling into this sort of motivational category. So you are looking at how to keep people in their job and keeping that team going, as well as improving your retention rate. You're revolutionising your recruitment team by getting their projects off the ground. And I probably don't need to explain that if you're motivated and you've got all the hygiene factors sorted out, you're in the ideal situation. But essentially, if you've got the different levels, then you'll be okay. You don't need to look at that. And then you'll create fans. So I wanted to talk about some of the sort of technical or digital aspects that we're doing as well. And there was a piece of feedback that we got off of our Voice of the Colleagues survey. Because our culture is really strong, we get a really, really high return rate on our Voice of the Colleagues survey, which is fantastic to see. And even this year, it's not seen any real sort of dip in the engagement level of it. Obviously, the scores that have come back have been slightly altered in different areas, but surprisingly positive still. One of the pieces of feedback that we had was that our online assessment that we did to get people into the business in the first place was really outdated. To give you an example, you couldn't use a mobile phone, you had to use a desktop or laptop, you needed a mouse, and you had to do it all in one go. It was 45 minutes long, and it just tested basically your intelligence or your IQ. It was great at the time because we needed people who could think fast and act quickly. But as the bank grew and matured, it was not going to be what we needed. And certainly when you're speaking to candidates of the age group, I guess, that we mostly are speaking to, because everybody went through the same test, it just wasn't the sort of thing that would create fans, and it was the sort of thing that would turn off people that we had before. And so what we actually went with Arctic Shores, who Chris was speaking about before, and the difference in engagement in there is absolutely huge. So you'll see that we can tailor it towards the different groups of people that we are within the bank. So we have a different benchmark that we would expect cashiers to reach in comparison to our leaders or in comparison to our specialist people. Whereas before we had a one-size-fits-all, now it's tailored. We have the ability, they all download the app, which makes it so that they can do it on the go if they really want to. We wouldn't advise it, but they can download it on the app, which makes it easier to do. The system will encourage them to take a break halfway through, and so it's much more friendly and will set you up for success, which is really important when you're going through what would be maybe a 45-minute assessment. And it gives them instant feedback in terms of a personality report that's personalised to them. So as soon as you complete the test, within about 5 minutes, you'll get a profile sent back to you to say, right, this is all the bits we've learned from you. It uses about 5,000 plus data points to be able to gauge exactly sort of what type of person you are. And as far as the process is concerned, which is what I like, nothing changed. So you had a recruiter or a candidate come through, they still did an online assessment, and then they went through to the hiring manager, which is great. However, as we all know, even if you've not changed anything, it's still changed, and you still need to manage your hiring managers and your recruiters and your recruitment team leaders to buy into exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we can revisit the feedback in the first place, revisit the difference between the two, because the numbers of people not passing, but reaching the expected benchmark was lower than with the previous assessment. And so you're seeing fewer CVs go through to the hiring managers. And so we've had to sit down with the hiring managers on almost a one-to-one basis. Even the chief information officer that we mentioned that we brought into the business, they were brought into the business on the old assessment, and so we've just switched it, and now they're seeing fewer CVs. We need to go to her with not only the, I guess, quantitative or qualitative information, but also the numbers. So we need to look at what we're doing. Now, we've only implemented it about a month or so ago. We've already seen that the people who reached the expected benchmark on the old test would, or 33% of them, would pass that first stage interview. And at the moment, and it's only quite recent, so we need to create fans. So in summary, in order to revolutionise our recruitment model, what we've done is focus on the leadership. That comes from the top down. We've been able to give ownership to our recruiters to develop what they need to develop and to improve the areas that they see we need to improve, because they're at the coalface at the end of the day, and I don't speak to as many candidates as they do. And we've been able to let them carry on doing what they're doing best by, although changing some of the technologies and systems that go behind it and giving them more insightful data, they're still recruiters speaking to their candidates and doing what they do best so that we can create fans.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Yes, any questions? Oh, thank you.